Good morning, Savannah. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever made a bad decision in your life?
Yes.
Yes. Haven't we all? I certainly have. Just ask my wife. She reminds me about them quite frequently. But why is it that we make bad decisions? And why do we sometimes look back on those and say, what was I thinking? Perhaps that's the problem. Perhaps we weren't thinking. Today I want to talk to you about evolution of making better decisions and how better decisions can take your life from a pea-brain decision to a pear-brain decision. What's the power of the pear-brain? We're going to get to that. What I want to first talk about is my children, Ellen and Brian. Brian was 7 years old on this summer vacation in 1995. We took vacation, went to DeGray Lake in Arkansas. And it was a beautiful day. My son, 7 years old, had never been able to ski. And this was a great opportunity. So he got in the water. We ended up putting his skis on. And like any loving parent, I gave him some fatherly advice. All right, Brian, hold on tight to that tow rope. Get those skis out of the water. Let the boat pull you out. Don't pull yourself out. Don't lean forward. Don't lean back. Are you ready? He was ready. I accelerated. And bam. Brian popped right up out of the water. He was skiing. You should have seen his big toothless grin. Sort of like this, only a lot bigger. Well, finally he fell. And I accelerated. I circled the boat back. And I looked back to see where he was. And I didn't see him. And I was petrified. He had a life jacket on. I knew he could swim, but I didn't see him. For some reason, I stopped the boat. And up he popped. Still holding, clutching the end of the tow rope. I finally circled around and I pulled up beside him. He was crying uncontrollably. I bent over, I lifted him out of the water and said, "Brian, are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay." "Brian, what's wrong?" "Why did you pull me through the water?" "Brian, when you fall, you're supposed to let go." "You didn't tell me to let go." I didn't know it at the time, but that day Brian taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. And that lesson was to let go. We hold on to a lot of baggage, don't we? Arguments. I certainly have. Jealousy, resentment. What about you? Arguments with a mother or father? Brother or sister? Friend? Coworker? We hold on so tight. What do we need to do to let go? I spent a lot of time looking at research about decision science and the evolution of how we make decisions. And after 50 years of research, including a couple Nobel laureate research, decisions come down to a few basic things. When we have to decide, when we have to make a decision, we think about, have I been in this situation before? What's happened in the past? Then we think about, what was the emotion that was attached to that decision? And then we make an automatic decision. What happened in the past? What was the emotion? I'm going to decide instantaneously. This is what I call pea-brain decisions. And you're laughing, but 80% of most of the decisions we made are automatic like this. They're instantaneous. We think about the past, we think about the emotion, and bam, we're going to do it. What I want to challenge you to do is not be a pea-brain, but be a pear-brain. What's the difference between a pea-brain and a pear-brain? One thing: reflection. If you're making pea-brain decisions, how do you know that that past experience isn't really weighting you one way or the other? How do you know that emotion is not interfering with the best decision in your life? And how do you know that an automatic decision is the right one? Maybe, in fact, in this situation, it's the wrong one. Reflection is where thinking happens. Reflection is where better decisions live. My message to you and my challenge to you today is, don't be a pea-brain, be a pear-brain. Let me talk about how the past can get in the way. In this situation, I'm going to talk about business. Look at the stock chart. If you had bought this stock in 2011 at about $32 and saw it plummet to $15, 51% decline over the course of 16 months, you probably wouldn't be happy. What's going on here? Well, this is a story of J.C. Penney. In 2011, the senior marketing executive from Apple, who had pioneered the development of the Apple Store, became the CEO of J.C. Penney. And perhaps his past experience was really influencing what he was doing, because he reimagined J.C. Penney somewhat akin to an Apple Store. Apple didn't take coupons, so J.C. Penney wasn't going to take coupons any longer. Apple never had sales, so J.C. Penney wasn't going to have sales. And what happened very shortly thereafter is the sales at J.C. Penney plummeted. This is pea-brain thinking. What happened in the past, the emotion, it's going to work in the future. Let's contrast that with what a pear-brain decision would have been. What's different in this situation? J.C. Penney's different. It's a different target customer. It's more moderate income. They're more budget conscious. And maybe pear-brain thinking would have led to some better decisions that would have led to some better financial outcomes. What about emotion? Emotion certainly gets in the way often, doesn't it? I'm here to tell you that it certainly does in my life. This is my father. This is when he was 21 years old. He was walking down the streets of New York City and he crumpled to the ground. And they rushed him to the hospital and they diagnosed him with a very lethal virus. And he was so sick, in fact, that the family called, the doctor called the family together and said, "We don't think your dad's going to make it through the night. We don't think your brother's going to make it through the night. We don't think your son's going to make it through the night. We don't think Richard will make it through the night." What my uncle, what his brother Robert did, was something that he later came to regret. He put my father's death notice in the paper. My father was not very happy. In fact, he was so angry with Robert that he never spoke a word again to Robert for the rest of his life. And I was 26 years old before I even knew I had an Uncle Robert. See, what I wasn't there to tell him was that you need to let go. I think of the example of Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 27 years, but he let go of the bitterness and the anger because he knew that was the only way that he would not stay in jail, that he could not accomplish his goals. And my father couldn't simply forgive his brother, couldn't find it in his heart to forgive his brother. What about you? Who in your family have you not forgiven? Who hasn't forgiven you? Who are you not talking to in your family, in your friends? And who's not talking to you? My challenge to you is do not be a pear-brain. I'm sorry, to be a pea-brain, but be a pear-brain. We talked about the implications of the past and the emotion. What about the automatic decisions that we make? My dream was to run a marathon. So let's think about my automatic decision. I had no past experience. I had no past emotion connected to it. In fact, at the time, I was 260 pounds. Why would I drag that 26.2 miles? My automatic decision would be, I'm going to put it on the back burner. I'll do it later. And guess what? 10 years later, I still wanted to do it later. So my pear-brain kicked in. It's a goal of mine. It was accomplished. It was something I wanted to do in my life. And in 2011, I finished the Dallas White Rock Marathon in 4 hours and 4 minutes. Now, finishing in 1,380th place might not seem very good to you, but I want to point out that I was 12th in my division. People say, what was that division? People ask me, what was my division? Well, it was called the Clydesdale division. That's right, I finished 12th of all the overweight runners. I'm actually still quite proud of that. What about your goals? I think about long-distance swimmer Diana Nyad. She had the opposite experience. At 28, she tried to swim from Cuba to Florida, 100 miles, and failed. And she tried it 3 more times after that and failed. What was her past experience? Failure. What was the emotion around it? Not very good. So what would her automatic reflex be? Not to do it again. But when she was age 60, her automatic decision was reconstituted. Her PEAR-brain kicked in, and she thought about, but this is a life goal of mine. This is a dream of mine. And last year at age 64, she became the first woman to swim from Cuba to Florida without the aid of a shark cage. Me running a marathon? It's insignificant. What do you want to accomplish in your life? What pea-brain thinking is taking over? And the automatic decision might not be the decision that you need. What family member is in this photograph? What goal is in this photograph? What accomplishment do you want to succeed is in this picture? My challenge to you is don't be a pea-brain, but be a PEAR-brain. Remember, the PEAR-brain is where reflection lives. The PEAR-brain is where letting go lives. The PEAR-brain is where forgiveness lives. The PEAR-brain is where accomplishment lives. The PEAR-brain is where your best decisions live. And the PEAR-brain is where your best life lives. Don't be a pea-brain, be a PEAR-brain.